We'd just like to say that these podcasts were recorded prior to the COVID-19 UK lockdown.
The Thinking Tackle Podcast.
Quite a big stick, and he said, yeah, one of those would explode and it would cover the size of the table.
Yeah.
You know, so it was you're not talking these little, PVA bags.
That's gone completely out of favour, hasn't it?
I know, and
Sticks
I said to him,
of
have
bread.
you used it since? And he's, not really.
Yeah,
Not
single
for
grain
sure.
of maize or a bit of plastic
Yeah.
over the top, wasn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. We need to...
Is that how he caught it, the Colin Brook fish?
Yeah, it changed his results on his last season. Yeah, he caught 6 fish. I think he said 6 fish when he started using that.
Right.
Yeah, using sweet corn casters. I remember reading about it in the book.
Yeah, I remember
He said
reading
it
about it. I
transformed
remember
his fishing.
talking to him about it because I go in the tackle box all the time. Lee's someone that I've had huge respect for, the whole time, and he was there the very first time I went into tackle box and had my leads to sell. He was the guy that said, do you mind if I just weigh them to make sure they're okay? And I was like, go ahead, I know they're absolutely bang on, and only 1 out of the 12 was actually right and all the others were wrong.
Well, yeah.
And Lee, I can remember Lee saying, oh, Dan, I'm so sorry, or not Dan because he didn't know me, but I'm so sorry, because I was just absolutely mortified. I had a van full of leads that I couldn't sell. And it was in the tackle box, but they've become our biggest customer.
Yeah. What happened to those leads?
Melted them all down. Started again. Yeah.
Wasted.
Well, it would have been wasted if I'd thrown them away. But yeah, one at a time, just in the stainless steel dog bowl of molten lead, holding the swivel one at a time. Lead's blowing up everywhere because they sometimes suck a little bit of water in, and water and lead do not mix. Coated all the underside of my kitchen cabinets in lead, coated me in lead as well,
You learned from that one.
Yeah.
How did you learn to not let that happen again?
Well, I had to reduce the size of the cavities in the moulds to make the leads lighter because they're all overweight. Where I'd stupidly calculated the increments in a 2D fashion, not a 3D fashion, and got all the measurements completely wrong. So a 3-raid 3.4. Basically, what you did was shaved the faces of the mould off to make the hole inside smaller, which reduced the weight, which made them okay. And they were if you look at the originals, they were ever so slightly oval in cross section because we'd shaved just a fraction of a millimetre off of each face. But nobody noticed. Got away with it.
No one. And nowadays, is it highly unlikely that anything would be that far out?
Yeah, mainly nowadays because of the wastage of material. There's no way a manufacturer would make a 3-ounce lead that weigh 3.4 because they're wasting 0.4 of an ounce every single one they make, and it's so expensive now. The margin in lead weights was astronomical at the start. That's how I was able to expand, but now it's nothing. Not even really worth selling leads, because the price of lead has gone up just ridiculously. I think I was paying £200 a tonne, and it's God knows what it is now. Probably close to £1,000 a tonne.
Right.
And it's just when you add that into the labour costs and everything else, it's they're a false economy now. But it's such an integral part of our entire range and a part of carp fishing generally. There's no way we'd never not do them.
Can you see materials that we use in leads evolving? I mean,
Well, it has to. It has to. Eventually, that lead will be completely banned, and we will, to fish legally, we will have to move over to an alternative. What will basically happen is it will go underground. It'll be thread in a shed. We'll make them because no one will want to use something that's 30% bigger for the same weight because they won't cast as far. So everyone will just use lead, but it'll get made by thread in a shed, and they'll be sold directly on the lakes, and it won't stop lead being used at all. Not in the slightest. It will just force it underground.
Right.
There'll be no taxation on it, because Fred in the shed's not declaring it, and it won't solve the problem at all,
Interesting.
But that's 100% what will happen in the UK. I don't know about abroad, but you don't even get your rod license checked nowadays. So is someone going to come round and ask you to wind in and check and see if what you've got on is lead or not? No way, mate. That is not happening, is it? What they'll do is go into tackle shops, which will be an easy win, and the Environment Agency will go into tackle shops and see if tackle shops are selling lead weights, and if they're not, problem solved. Not at all. Won't make a jot's worth of difference. It will just force it underground, you know.
Just question I bet a lot of people want to ask you. Does it worry you about how much lead we drop into lakes?
Yes, it does.
What do you think is going to happen, Dan?
Well, if you take Cassienne as an example in the south of France, it's been a big carp fishery since the 80s. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of leads, I'm sure, have been deposited on the bottom of that lake, whether they've been lost where a fish has cut you off, snagged up, dumped on the take, whatever. And I'm told that has some of the best water quality in the whole of Europe. A lead nowadays is encased in plastic. So for that lead to get into the water, that plastic has to be penetrated, compromised, whatever. And the plastic coating we used to use on our leads before we moved manufacturers was guaranteed against the abrasive action of seawater for 15 years. So if you powder coated the leg of an oil rig in the North Sea, that company would guarantee that plastic wouldn't come off for 15 years. So how long does it stay on a lead for in fresh water that's not moving? 50 years? 100 years? What does it fossilise it? Is it buried in the silt before it can even come off? You know, so you know, I think there's far worse things out there, and I think a lot more lead gets into the water through fumes from diesel barges and all that sort of thing as well. But I don't know. I'm only talking, sort of from what's been alluded to me. But yeah, I only dump the lead if not dumping the lead would have meant I'd lost the fish, or I'd lost the lead and the fish and all the line attached to it as well. That's I've just we're going to talk about Gigantica. I've been to Gigantica the last 2 weeks. I haven't lost any leads, not one.
All right.
I'm fishing running rigs, and I've not dumped any.
Giving a little bit away there, Dan.
I'll give a lot away, mate, over the next couple of hours. But yeah, it's not essential to dump the lead to land the fish at all. But in certain situations, if it was going to weed you up and snap you up, and you would have lost the lead anyway, and the fish and all the line, surely it's worth it.
Okay, well, we'll get onto that maybe later. So, Dan, like we ask every guest on the show now, customary on the Thinking Tackle podcast, have you got the gift?
I have got a gift, again, saved by the bell by my lovely employees. We've got the very first booklet that I wrote about carp leads, and the joke always is that I can write a 3,000 word on an article on a plastic bucket.
Might have proved it there.
And basically, I've written a whole pamphlet just on how to use the leads correctly, because I saw so many people using them wrong, and obviously I wanted to use it as a vehicle to promoting the range of leads. And look at that, inline leads. Every single insert in them a different length because they're all cut by hand.
Right.
Yeah. Nothing poking up inside the nose of the lead as is customary now. That was all, light years ahead of this situation.
When did that book come out?
It came out winter 93.
I remember that well.
Yeah.
Yep.
23 years old I was at that point. And honoured by having Mr. Rod Hutchinson in the book and on the front cover, Zen and Boyko.
That was quite young, wasn't it, to bring something out like that then, wasn't it? 23?
Yeah, I was, hell-bent on being successful, mate.
Were you definitely 23?
I was 23, mate, yeah.
Actually, you were, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
49
18,
now, mate.
18, right.
49 now, so in my 50th
There's a
year.
picture on the back there.
Yep, my first ever 30 from Shotgate, when it all changed hands and the old syndicate were thrown out because they hadn't paid a bill or something, and it was a bit of a free-for-all. And my first ever 30-pounder.
Was it?
Looking a bit like John Lennon there with the long hair.
Very much
and the round glasses.
Yeah, and now haven't changed a bit really, Dan, have you, apart from the hair?
Apart from the hair, yeah.
Put that ponytail back on and
yeah. I'm
£1 it cost.
£1, yeah. I didn't want to give it away because I didn't want people to just take it and throw it. So I wanted some sort of commitment out of people, but £1 was no barrier to people picking it up and reading it, and that made a huge difference to to the demand for the product.
I think I might remember seeing that on the counter of a few fishing tackle shops.
Oh, mate, I think we printed 10,000 of them and we sold them all.
It's good.
You know, so yeah.
Yeah, so the old entrepreneurialism was well underway then.
Oh, it was always there, mate. Yeah, always there.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that, Dan.
That's all right.
We will add that.
I've not even got one myself, actually. I'll have to, next time I go to a show, I'll have to see if one of these collectors have got any. Right, Damien's probably got 10 of them at home, hasn't he?
He'd have a leatherback version.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, good.
Good old Damo.
Yeah. Right, so we're going to talk about Gigantica.
Yes.
So, when did you decide to buy Gigantica, and how easy a decision was it to actually decide to buy that?
Very easy decision. Every carp angler wants to own their own lake, don't they? It's a dream of every carp angler to have their own lake. And I'd been looking for ages, looking in the UK and looking at abroad, and had narrowly missed out on a few where I hadn't offered enough money. Basically, heard it was up for sale. I'd been there a couple of times already. One to sort of case it out to see if we could make an underwater film there, which we couldn't because it was too murky at the time. But fished it anyway. Really enjoyed it. Went back the following year and did some promo sort of stuff with our European team because they'd never used a marker float before. This is the team members. This is not general anglers. These are the sponsored anglers. Never used a marker float. Never used a spod. You know, just they all use boats. Wasn't their way, you know, you're donking with a lead off the side of the boat, and that's how you're finding your spots and what have you. So we did that promo thing, loved it again, and then the following spring I heard it was up for sale, and spoke to the sort of intermediate, the guy that I knew that knew the owner, booked to go and see them, talk about it, and the day before I was about to go, they said it's been sold. I'm like, oh, cheers, thanks a lot. So absolutely gutted. I booked my ferry and everything's before Eurotunnel. Booked my ferry, so that was all wasted. And then came back to me weeks or months later and said, actually, it's fallen through. Are you still interested? And I said, yeah. I think I went over there in the June. I think it was June, May or June. Agreed a price with him, and then there was a long period between then and sort of October before the sale actually went through, and that's a dangerous time. I didn't know it at the time, but I've learnt a lot about it since. That time between agreeing a price and the sale going through, you don't know what's happening out there unless you live there.
What fish?
Fish being nipped.
Yes.
You know, and lakes being netted, you know, and all of the fish being taken out, and the poor owner arrives and there's no fish left, you know, and it can be the old owner or people they know that have actually netted it, or other people that have just heard the old owner's lost interest. In we go, you know, it's full of villains. That you know, sort of people with no moral compass. Unfortunately, that industry, especially over there, and they're not French necessarily. They're not English necessarily.
Sorry, the owners of the lake, which was Saint Christophe at the time.
Yes.
English or
French?
French. They were French. Right.
So they weren't doing that.
No.
You know, not at all. But word got back to me through my friend Matthew, who's now one of our employees in Korda Europe. The fish are being stolen out of your lake. And I'm like, I really need this. Like, why is that? Well, nothing's being caught, and a lake down the road's bragging that they're buying your fish. But this is on the Belgian carp, on the grapevine, Belgian grapevine. So my Dutch brother, he's not my brother, but he's like it, Co, who I'd known for years. I knew he had time because he wasn't working, and I said, Co, would you go down there and look after it for me in the time between, you know, now and actually the paperwork going through? And he said yeah, and he parked his old one of these old space wagons, parked it across the gate for 3 or 4 months, and basically made sure that wasn't happening. The catch rate went through the roof because he stopped everybody overbaiting and fishing too far out and all that. So because the owner wasn't interested at all.
Sorry, why did someone say to you they were being taken if they?
Well, because that was the word on the grapevine, because no one was catching anything.
Right.
No one was catching anything because everyone was putting too much bait in, and they were all boating out ridiculous distances and all crossing over each other, and it was just madness, absolute madness. Going from the Swimco's point used to be number 7, and that looks directly up the lake, and it's about 250 to 300 yards up the lake. And they were taking permanent markers out 200 yards or more, right up to the other end, and dropping their rigs up there. They might as well have fished up the other end and fished 100 yards out. You know, it was mad. Because they're going out in a boat, your swim's as big as the boat will go, isn't it? You know, and it was just absolute carnage. So Co stopped all that happening, limited people to 100 metres with a boat or remote or whatever, and it started fishing really well. And then the sale went through, and we went over there in the September of... trying to think now. I've had it. 2008, September 2008, to sign the paperwork, and then from then on it was ours. And then I basically started filming and fishing on it not long after.
Straight after. Did you ever regret buying a French lake and not an English lake?
No, because there wasn't any English lakes available. And again, I tried more. I tried more in England to buy lakes than I did in France. Didn't really try that hard in France.
What type of lakes were you looking for?
In England, anything.
Yeah?
Anything, yeah. Just anything sort of 5 acres or more, you know, that I could turn into a syndicate or maybe a day ticket if it was big enough. Just really wanted a fishery, wanted to run somewhere my way.
So you didn't know before you bought St. Christophe that you necessarily wanted a day ticket lake or a holiday venue? It was just that's what seemed to fit that venue.
Well, looking back, I'm in a different place financially and mentally now. Looking back, I wanted something that earned money, you know, so it would have been a day ticket in this country or a holiday venue in France. You know, I did the figures. It looked really good, figures wise. You know, you could have a good income out of it, and you still can. I think if you get it dead right, or if you live there. But doing what I was doing and having somebody else working there and trying to manage it from another country was highly problematic. Highly, very, very difficult to keep tabs on what's going on day to day, how much money's being spent, how much money's being wasted.
Do you know what Damo said?
What?
He said you'd be better off filling it up with pound coins.
Yeah.
It'd still be cheaper.
Yeah, it'd still be cheaper, yeah. Yeah, that's what I did feel like at the start, that I was just shoveling euro coins into the lake. And that's gone on and on and on. You know, we're only starting to make a profit now, you know, sort of 10 years down the line, and people that have paid for hot fishing there will say, oh, blimey, he charges an absolute fortune, he's having it off. But there's so much, with a big site, so much money just hemorrhages out of that business. You know, the kitchen to prepare the food was 35 grand when we renewed it. That can easily be the profit from 1 year by the time you paid your salaries and everything else, gone. So there's no profit at all. It's, you know, it's all right if you're living there and you're running it all yourself, you can have a very good living out of it. And that's what I would say to anybody that's considering doing it. It's a very lonely existence. I know that from the bailiffs that have lived there full time. And, you know, the guys there now do 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and that is manageable. You know, 2 weeks back in the UK or 2 weeks on holiday or whatever, that is manageable. But doing it full time, like Danny Turtle did it for 4 or 5 years, you know, I'm not surprised it drove him mad in the end.
Well, I saw him in. When did he stop working there? I first fished there. Well, I've only fished there
about 3 weeks after he got there.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. He worked like an absolute Trojan for the first few years, and I expected a hell of a lot of him, and he came up, you know, up to that request. You know,
he was a proper bailiff.
He worked his arse off.
Yeah,
he really did.
Yeah.
You know, he got it all the swims all done. You know, prepared all the food, did everything on his own, constantly. You know, and they got 2 or 3 months off in the winter, but 2 or 3 months off in one block is a weird way to exist. You know, and he did it for a good few years before really he lost interest in it and his head was elsewhere. And you know, I didn't take into account just what it was like to go and live that life. You know, at the time, I was so hell bent on having a fishery and so hell bent on having him run it, because I'd seen what he'd done for the big Grange in Essex and how into the big Grange he was, and being a bailiff there and everything else. I just thought, this is the perfect guy. Yeah. You know.
Do you know what? Around that sort of period, I was thinking about getting away, actually, and just maybe going off somewhere, living rent-free and living in a foreign country.
Yeah.
And it sounds quite idyllic, actually, doesn't it? Until you're a few years in, I suppose.
Yeah, I think if you're prepared to integrate, learn the language, integrate into society there, which is difficult in France. I had to use a translator once because I got taken to court by the French tax authorities, and they appointed a translator for me, and basically got chatting with her, and she said the French are very insular. They do not want to mix with people outside, especially in rural France. And it's she had a French husband. This is all her, second hand from her, but she said his family had disowned him because he hadn't married a French woman. Obviously it's only one family. I'm not saying it's the whole country, but she said all of her friends are expats from other countries. I think she was Eastern European. They're Portuguese or they're English or they're Spanish or they're Dutch or whatever. All her friends are expats. They're not French. And she spoke fluent French because she was my translator in court. So I don't think it is that easy to mix, to integrate. I think it is possible, though, definitely. I think it is possible. But you got English guys serving English guys all the time. Why are you gonna mix with the French?
Right.
And maybe if you're doing a job on your own, maybe you bring some sort of harem over with you, to keep you occupied. A nice bevy of young ladies to start the lake with. No, I tried loads of times. They got away.
They got away. I tell you what, I saw him.
They broke their bonds. And
they did. I saw him. So 2011 was the first time I met Danny, and now we fish on the same lake as each other.
You do.
And I saw him about 5 years later at Walthamstow. And he shouted out across the car park, and I looked and I thought, crikey, it looks like he's been in a house spa compared to how he looked at Gigantica. It just looked like a changed man, Dan.
Yeah. It was too much expecting one person to live there on their own continuously. Yeah. But the figures just didn't add up doing it any other way. And if I had my time again, I would have had two guys and rotated them, and got them to share the money and given them a bigger salary. And taken, well, there was no profit in it anyway, but, I've never taken a penny out of Gigantica the whole time I've been there, whatever it is, what we're now 11 years in, I haven't taken a penny for myself out of it, and I've spent an absolute fortune on it. It's a labour of love, it is, but yeah, having had my time again, there's lots of things I would have done differently, and definitely expecting someone to live in France continuously on their own and run the whole thing on their own was too much.
You changed some policies on there as well. I think you might have mentioned some of that on the last podcast, obviously with the amount of anglers that were on the lake. So you restricted lines. And
the old owner didn't charge a lot of money. The Dutch loved it there because it was cheap. So I think it was 180 euros for the week. No food or anything, But you could double up, So then he's had 360 euros out of that one swim, not 180. 4 rods each. And there were 13 double swims, so 26 anglers, all fishing 4 rods, whatever that is, 100 and something rods, 104 rods or something. We cut it down to 10 anglers, 3 rods each. So it went, from 104 rods to 30 rods overnight. Obviously, that made a huge difference. Stop people boating rigs out and remote control boating rigs out, which makes the lake very small because everyone goes out as far as they can rather than where they need to. That made a massive difference. It started getting fished with boilies, with throwing sticks, rather than lumping out huge amounts of bait over the side of the boat. Fish didn't know what had hit them. That really made a big difference. Just big hits of fish. So and the first first couple of years definitely were, Danny giving great advice to the anglers as well. Knew the lake like the back of his hand. They thought he was God. They'd be in a swim, not caught anything. He's like, wind's changing tomorrow. Put 5 key out. They're like, 5k, that's loads of boilies, to your average English angler. Trust me, put 5 key out. Wind's changing tomorrow, you'll get what. Next day at dinner, I've had 3, and he's like God. And I remember in our visitors book, the best bailiff in France, they used to write. That, honestly, then, it's not him writing it. These are normal customers. And he absolutely smashed it.
Did Gigantica have more fish in there or less fish than you envisaged when you finally got hold of it?
It had less than I'd been told, but it had more big uns than we could have ever hoped for. So double-edged sword, really. There was a massive pile of pictures that the owner had, but it was all the same fish over and over and over and over. Really poor pictures as well. You talk about the French taking pictures of the French, just badly held, badly shot, just a load of Polaroids almost, So obviously we, straight away, I got Danny to keep really, really good records of the fish, and we started updating the website and had a different file for every single fish. I think if you pull it up now, actually, you can go onto the website and onto the fish. You can see how much effort we put into, and we've done that since the word go. So if you click on the fish on that top bar, if you want a bit of carp porn, this is the site to go on.
I look on this from time to time, Dan. I was going to go out in November,
that's
actually.
80 pounders. They've not updated the picture of the Immaculate yet, which got caught the other week. But yeah, each weight class has got its own thing. So click on the 70s, 570s, click on the 60s, 15, is it? 60s, 15, 60s, 50s. I don't know how many there is, 30 odd. 50s.
Wow.
Yeah. But go down to the 20s. Go down to the 20s. So, even every single 20 is catalogued as well.
Right.
So we can tell you exactly how many fish are in there to the best of our knowledge. There are new fish getting caught every year that are not stockies, that have been in there the whole time, born in the lake, and we're probably getting half a dozen to 10 every year, new ones. So how many are in there that have never been caught? God only knows. It might be 50, it might be 20, it might be 100, but it's a weird place that they go missing for long periods or just come out for the first time ever. So
yeah, you said that before. Yeah. You can see which ones are stockies on there, can't you? And
easy peasy, mate.
Yeah. The longer ones are the what about number 15 at the top there, down on the right hand side? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, that's on the most unwanted list.
Yeah.
So that one's going in the road lake when he gets caught.
Is it? Yeah.
Not doing anything, not growing, but a nice addition to the road lake because it hasn't got many scalies in. So we are mucking about with the stock.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, so obviously
you can see that one stood out a little bit. That one's
not been caught. If you go back onto that, Paul, that one's not been caught since April 17. So 2 years. There's no picture. If you click through it, is there any pictures of it earlier? Go top right hand. Sorry, on the actual picture, there's an arrow, and again, click it again. No, that's it. So there's one capture of that fish. And it hasn't been caught again for 2 years.
Interesting.
So that got to £20, without being caught, because we would have had a picture of it if it was. And it hasn't been caught since. And that's very typical, because we keep such careful records. We can say that one hasn't been caught because we would have had a picture of it, and that's just so typical of the lake.
So would you remove a fish that's just not growing, or one that doesn't look
We are now.
Right.
We are now because we're putting so many stockies in, and they are growers. These guys are just eating boilies and pellets and maize or whatever that the big uns could be eating and growing on. And not that it's not a beautiful carp, it is a beautiful carp. Look at that, but it's never going to amount to anything. So in the road lake, as part of a, well, that's what you have to be when you're a fishery manager, mate. You have to be ruthless. You have to be mercenary.
So how did the first few years on Gigantica go?
Good at the start. We were using angling lines to do the selling for us, to do the bookings. Very, very good, very efficient company. Lots of ladies on the phone until God knows when at night. Doing all the bookings, and very efficient with it as well. Got to a point where Korda had grown a fair bit. We had people in the office that could do that same work, that had the time to do it. So we withdrew from angling lines only because we had our own staff. Not because of the job they did, because they did a brilliant job. And again, if I was a lake owner now, I wouldn't even consider doing it myself. I would let angling lines do it. And that definitely affected us negatively, taking it on ourselves. Angling lines have got a huge customer base of people, and if you can't get booked on one lake, then they can advise you to go on a different one that's similar. So that had a negative effect on the amount of people going, and then it got weedy. Sort of 5 years in, there wasn't a drop of weed in it when we took it, but 5 years in ish, it started to get really weedy. That was problematic, put people off. We cut the weed, treated the weed, dived to the bottom of the weed and cut it off manually. Did loads of crazy stuff in that period, and at the same time, obviously, we moved a few fish out of the lake into the stock pond, those sort of fish that were sort of 17, 18, 19 pound scalies. moved about 50 of them out, which eventually got moved into the road lake when we bought the road lake. And we lost a few fish every year. You lose a few. Someone said to me at the very start, if you've got live fish, you're going to have dead fish. So get used to it. The first carp tackle tactics and tips I went to shoot there, I buried the one I wanted to catch the day I got there, 68 pounder. Did
you say another one popped up soon after that? You said there was a big fish that died around the time when you were going to purchase the lake, and then
no, that was a different one. So basically, the big 70 pounder, big fat thing. Basically, that in between us agreeing a price and actually taking the lake on, we thought it was there, and then got told by some guys that were there at the time that it had got into distress and the owner had taken it away to give it oxygen. Don't know what that meant, but the fish never came back from what I understand. But this other one that died was a different one. It was absolutely banging fish. Just, I think it was a male, almost scaleless. Can't remember what we called it now. But it'd been caught. This was the year after we bought it. It was the first year I did the filming on there, and I was gutted, absolutely gutted. But that's life. Do you know what I mean? If you've got, like I said, if you've got live fish, you're gonna have dead fish.
Yeah.
And if you're irresponsible with your stocking, you can bring diseases and stuff on site and wipe them all out, which we've never done, and we won't ever do. But just through old age, stress, whatever, a capture, being tethered up, whatever, being dropped on the bank, held wrong, all those things can be the demise of a fish, and you can't be in control of all of that all the time because you're not there. So we've learned over the years, and we've cut our losses down to the nth degree. Still lose a few every year. I think we lost 5 or 6 this year, including a couple of big ones. But they're 30 years old or more now. And they live in a very pressured environment. They're not caught very often, the big ones, or most of the big ones, but eventually they get to the end of their days.
Who's christening all these fish on this lake? Because they've all got quite creative names down, haven't they?
We're all doing it between us, to be honest. We're out there again in November to do the stocking for this year. And it just depends what's going on. When the last time we were there, or 2 years ago we were there, my mate Danny came for the first time. He works at a restaurant called Sexy Fish up in Berkeley Square, and one come out and someone said, "God, that's a sexy fish," and boom, that was it. It's called Sexy Fish from now on,
Poor thing.
Yeah. But Ian Bailey, who's a bit of a strange one, wanted to call one Dr. Sex Ambulance, so it's called Dr. Sex Ambulance. Don't know where that comes from. Only Bailey knows. Yeah. Simply and lovely, because simply lovely, be seeing you and all that. All these sort of topical things. There's one called Mr. President, which if you look through, Paul, there's a really scaly one that my mate Andy Reynolds caught recently.
Yeah,
on those images that I gave you. Obviously not one that I'm holding. Yeah, it's just gone onto screen now on the right hand side. Real scaly one. That's it there. Mr. President, that was the only one that came out of our third stock pond that was big enough to go in the main lake, and it was stocked on the day that Trump was inaugurated, so we called it Mr. President, and a lovely carp it is too. There it is there at 30 pound, so it went in at 6 pound. 3 years later, it's a 30.
Right. Yeah. That's
growth.
Shame about the anniversary, really, wasn't it? But
shame about the anniversary, but it's topical. Do you know what I mean? It's topical, and I like. We've stopped customers naming them after children and grannies and granddads and all that, because there's too many that are just, have got not a very imaginative name. I know it's poignant for the person to name it after your little one. I know that, but we want them to have a story attached to them.
That's a nice fish, anyway. Well, you remember the name anyway, won't you?
Yeah.
It's quite a distinctive... Well, they've all got distinctive names now.
Yeah, they have.
What's the story about the tax man then? You were saying about the computer...
Oh, yeah. So basically, you should register to open a company in France, which we did. Went to a local notaire, which is their solicitor. Registered for fish farming and everything else. All the activities you think that you might do, selling tackle, doing food, anything that you think you might do. You put all of that down when you register to open a limited company, if you like, an SARL, I think it is in France. Did that with a local notaire in Troyes, which is just up the road from us. Didn't hear anything. Bearing in mind, I'm back in England most of the time. Danny Turtle's gone up there. His office is all boarded up, gone. Right, disappeared. No forwarding address, nothing. Don't speak French. Can't ask anybody around there where he's gone. And my mistake was dragging my heels and not finding somebody else straight away. So what we did was we declared all of the money in England, paid the tax in England, and didn't find somebody else to open this limited company as quickly as we should have done. Eventually we did. You know, the accountants here kept pressing me to do it. We found someone to do it, got done. After that had all got done, taxman's turned up at the lake, just happened to be while I'm there, right? 1 week in October when I'm fishing. Turned up with the police at the lake and a chain to chain the gate shut and lock us up, right? Close us down. So like, whoa, what's going on? You do not have a limited company. I said, no, we do. And I showed them all the paperwork and they went, yes, but what about the 3 years before? And I explained the situation, the notaire, gave them the details of the notaire. Not happy with that, want me to come down the station and give a statement. With Danny Turtle as well. And the company computer, they want to have a look through. So we go down to the police station. When I get to the police station, they charge me. So I'm against the wall with the plaque round my neck and all that sort of thing, having the pictures done, fingerprinted, all this sort of thing. I don't think I'm getting let go. Right, bearing in mind we've already got the paperwork in place, and I said, look, we've declared all of our money through the UK account. You can see all of that. Everything's above board, and I think because so many English people declare nothing, pocket the whole lot, because obviously running Korda, every penny went through. I don't want to hide any money, but everybody else does. And even when we first bought the lake, a Frenchman came up to see us and he said, you must work in black. And I'm like, what's black? And their black is off the books. That's what black means in France. So all the French are doing it as well. No one ever declares anything in France. So the fact I'm doing it all, they don't believe me, because I've got a different moral compass. I'm just the same as everyone else. So it's guilty until proven innocent, So they've taken Danny in to question him and looked through the company computer. And my mate Andy's taken me down to the police station in Brienne down the road. So one of the police officers was fit as, right? She was gorgeous. She was a 9 out of 10, easily.
Oh.
I think the uniform probably helped, but she was lovely. So she's interviewed Dan, right? And you know what Dan's like. Big lump, man's man, gruff as you like, right? So she's turned on the company computer, and Dan had a penchant at this time for gas masks, for anything in a gas mask. He loved it, right? So the first picture she clicks on is a horse in a gas mask, right? So she said to him, personnel or commercial, right? And he's had to go, personnel. Right, so she's like, clicked on the next one. The next one, there's a bloke in a rubber suit with his hands behind his back with a tube coming out of his mouth, just on his hands and knees, that Dan's collected off the internet somewhere. She's gone, personnel or commercial? And he's had to go, personnel. So the next picture is Danny Turtle on Coes Point in a pair of waders and nothing else with a gas mask on, turning round at the camera like he's been caught with a rod in his hand, like that. Like this woman couldn't look at him after that, right? So he's come out and told us, because they're looking for tax evasion. Do you know what I mean? Not pictures of people in rubber and horses in gas masks. So Turtle is, like, as you know, one of the best storytellers in the world. He tells it 1,000,000 times better than me. He's telling me and Andy while we're sitting in reception, bearing in mind I've not been charged at this point, we're just crying with laughter, absolutely pissing ourselves. So they've kept the computer, let Danny go, and then I've been taken in and questioned. And while we're sitting there, we're waiting for one of the police officers, and the tax inspector's there, and we're waiting for one of the police officers to come in and witness all this going on. The tax inspector's like this. And he said, in perfect English, he said, we could have opened 2 limited accounts in the time it's taken to wait for this officer. Like I should have done a lot more than I've done, a proper dig. So I went, all right, mate, tie me a hair rig. He went, excuse me, sorry. I said, tie me a hair rig. He said, well, I don't understand. I said, yeah, of course you don't. I said, I'm a professional fisherman. I can tie your hair rig in 2 seconds. You're a professional accountant. You know how to open an SARL. I don't, so don't talk to me like that. So that straight away has like got his back up, got my back up as well. And yeah, it's ended up me thing round my neck in front of the door, convict number, whatever. And eventually they've let me go, like literally whatever it was, 9 o'clock on Friday night. I've got to drive the boys back in my van the next day. I think I'm getting locked up for the weekend because the prosecutor in Paris is deciding whether or not to let me go, So got let off, or certainly got released, got back to the lake. Hadn't caught a fish up until this point either, put my rods out, caught one that night, which we called the detainee. We nicknamed the detainee. But eventually had to go to court. Obviously, we had tax accountants at this point because we'd got everything sorted and been declaring it. And the solicitor, or the barrister we got to represent me, was a famous French barrister, like off the telly famous.
All right.
And while I'm waiting to go into court, they're all having their picture taken with him and all this, all just the people in the court, because he's just and he's giving it the big and to the 3 judges. And like I'm thinking, it's like theatrical, So I've said to them, I'm not trying to evade tax. I want to pay tax in this country. This is what's happened. The translator's translated. But I don't know why, but I had, I smiled at the end of when I said it, and I thought that was a major mistake. Almost it must have looked like I was being smug. We got fined for like 130 grand or something. It's crazy. They all our receipts got thrown away, which I don't know whose doing it was, but somebody either working at the lake or back in England. I don't know. You'd never get to the bottom of it, but we had no receipts, so we had all the credit card bills for what we'd spent money, but they basically made us pay VAT on all the food we'd sold, even though they didn't acknowledge we'd ever bought any food, because all of these bills are null and void, because although we had the bank statements, we didn't have the bills. So they've made us pay VAT on all the food we sold, even though we'd never bought any food. We just got absolutely destroyed.
You can't fight that then.
You can't fight. It's another. We've had the top barristers working on it. French tax accountants working on it. Spent an absolute fortune on that side of it, and still got stung for a ridiculous amount of money. That if we didn't have Korda, we couldn't have paid, and we would have lost the lake, and that would have been the end of it. All through my own stupidity or inexperience of not getting a decent notaire to register the business and start declaring the money in France, right? Because we declared it all in England. We showed them all of it. You can, if you want to share the tax, benefit for all of this, we're not trying to hide anything, But because I think we're English and they wanted to make an example of us, that's what happened. The funniest bit was Turtle with the commercial or personnel.
I think some of the rotor boys might like to hear that.
I think they'll love it. I think they'll love it.
I don't think they'll be surprised.
Turtle will tell it better, I'm sure, over at the lake.
Yeah. So did you think at that point, why am I bothering with this lake? Just get rid of it.
1,000,000 times, yes.
Right.
But the giant was £80 maybe at that point.
Another great name, Dan.
Yeah.
That was one. Yeah.
And
that was a big.
If it's called Gigantica, then the big one's got to be called the giant, isn't it? And it was going great guns. Was a male fish, and I just couldn't. I still can't. I couldn't have somebody else's name be over the door of that lake, having invested so much love and time and everything else, and not the money side of it, but the rest of it. The years and years of toil and everything, I just couldn't have it belonging to somebody else. So it would have been very easy to cut and run at that point, and lick my wounds and think I'm not doing that again. But instead I bought the road lake and just doubled my trouble, basically. Yeah.
So, because you've said to me, I should ask you some crazy stories about Gigantica.
Yeah.
So, any other stories that spring to mind, Dan?
That
was. Yeah, didn't hesitate there.
No. I was just thinking another one with Turtle. He's rung me. He's such a wind-up merchant. That boy. He's always got me the whole time. We've known each other. He's always had me like in the palm of his hand, and he's rung me up. He said, "Dan, there's been an incident at the lake." So I'm like, "Oh no, what?" So he's like, got a phone call in the middle of the night. One of the blokes on the other side is having an episode. I'm like, oh, fucking hell, someone's died at the lake. Someone has died at the lake. So I'm like, yeah. He said, I come round here. He said, there's this old boy hyperventilating, can't calm down, hyperventilating. He's caught the biggest fish he's ever caught. Like, it's like this, and all his mates, it's like, and Dan's had to like hold on to him and like calm down, mate. Well, when he's looked in the net, it's a 28 pounder. He's like, not even a big one, not even a big one. But this geezer, like, they're thinking he's having an heart attack because he's just absolutely, utterly blown away by this fish. But obviously, Turtles kept it going for about 10 minutes before he finally told me that he's just some old boy's caught a 28 pounder. And,
my God.
We had all the the Garde de Pêche turn up from Orient, Forêt d'Orient, just up the road, the lake, big lake, taking pictures of all that, because we're in the clubhouse. We've got all the fish, all the big uns, or half the big uns, because there's not enough space for all of them, but half the big uns are up in the clubhouse, so that when you go out for dinner, I'd love to have that one, so it doesn't matter if you're blanking, it's a shot in the arm every time you go up the clubhouse. And they're taking pictures of all these A3 shots of all the fish. I'm like, whoa, I just happened to be there again. Whoa, what's going on? They've got guns and everything, proper Garde de Pêche, like, And I said, why are you photographing all of our fish? And the bloke went, we love carp. I was like, really? That's why you're photographing all the pictures of our fish? And they thought we'd nicked them out of Orient.
Did they?
And they were taking all the pictures so they could cross-reference to see if they could do us for it. Now, when I'm trying to live and work by the strongest moral compass I possibly can, and then you're getting accused of things like that, it stings. It does. And they were off, gone, couldn't make a complaint. In England, the EA turned up like that, I would not be having it. They'd be getting prosecuted for it. Just absolutely taking the piss. So. Yeah, there's
never a dull moment there, Dan, is there?
Never a dull moment. I mean, it's getting duller now, but in a good way.
Is it?
I've got a great team of people there now. 3 guys share the 2 jobs, so they all get time back in the UK. We can do it because we've got 2 lakes now, and it was the way we should have always done it before, really, a rota system. But great guys, really love the lake, suit the lifestyle. And work really well as a team, it's boring, but it's good boring because they're just getting everything right. There's no fireworks anymore, no crazy stuff happening. We have to. Our French accountants can't even work out our French salaries. You have to go to a French salaries expert because France is such an old country. There's about 20 different taxes that you have to pay, like 2 cents to this federation and 1 cent to this, and if you don't do it right, you're in trouble. So our French accountants won't even do our payroll. We have to go to a special payroll company to do it because it's too complicated for the accountants. So what chance have we got? Do you know what I mean? And there's very few people, I think, in France that are actually doing it properly like that. But it doesn't make any money, but it's getting to that point now, where they're running it so well. But we've made so many losses over the last 10 years that hopefully it's going to take a long time to pay those losses back before we start paying any tax on it, I hope.
Yeah, well, that might, that's one.
That's probably another law that's probably not valid in France, and all your losses are written off within 12 minutes of it happening. Yeah.
The guys, they're quite experienced anglers as well, working on the bailiff wise.
Yeah. I mean, they're all experienced anglers. The angling side of it is probably secondary to the cooking and also the logistics and getting everything running smooth as silk over there the whole time. And there's a lot that goes on in the background. I mean, just with the stockies alone, trying to identify all the stockies from when they went in at 6 pounds to when they've just been caught at 30. That is a task in itself. There's so much paperwork involved. Keeping supply of all the food stuffs and drink and all the tackle that gets sold and the bait and everything else, and anything else that we run out of. That's a full-time sort of job in itself. But they are all experienced anglers. They all catch loads of fish when they do actually fish. So when they get to go in one of the central swims, they always terminate. And that doesn't happen very often because we're pretty much full all the way through the year. But in the winter time, I mean, Steve Bartlett last year, between Christmas and New Year that week. He had 17 bites off of Coast Point in December. That's just unheard of, just ridiculous. So
is that area of water? Is that where you're tending to get bites in the winter?
No, I mean not necessarily. It's where the pack of fish move around. In the winter, it definitely changes. The fish definitely ball up, and they end up further out. Unless you get mega weather conditions. If you get really strong southerly or westerly, it pushes them over onto that bank, and they can be caught 50, 60, 70 yards out, and they're showing in at that range. But generally, if we've got normal weather conditions, the fish do tend to mass up more in the middle in the winter. Springtime, they start to migrate.
Are they sitting up high in the water, do you think? A lot
of the time, I think they are, yeah. Yeah. Why would they be sitting on the bottom unless they're dormant, So, yeah, I think they're packed up pretty tight out in the middle. But as soon as the water starts to warm, they migrate into the edges. Come May, they're all in the edges, and it's the edge swims that are far better than the open water swims. And then once they've spawned, they spread out again, sort of July onwards, they spread out again, and then you've got the sort of clubbing season between sort of July and October, and then it starts to slow down more and more, and they mass back up in the middle again.
Yeah, they definitely turn from, they really get onto bait. They're bait fish, aren't they, at the end of second half of the year, aren't they?
They are bait fish. I mean, they're bait fish all the way through the year now. I mean, when we didn't have the stockies in, bearing in mind 3 years ago there was 300 carp in there, now there's 650. So many extra fish we've put in. They're all born in the lake. They're all the babies of the fish actually in the lake. So biosecure as you can possibly be. We're only picking the best ones. Like I say, now with that many extra fish, you don't need to fish zigs in the spring like you used to. Used to be 3 rods on zigs. Everyone did it. April, May, June. Everyone was just zigs fishing because it was an easy win. You don't need to do that now because the stockies are ravenous. And it's getting the big uns getting caught as well off the bottom. So we reduced it down to 1 rod on zigs this year. Didn't really need to because no one fished them because you were still getting loads of bites on the bottom. Because putting them stockies in has totally transformed the lake and has encouraged the originals to feed off the bottom when they wouldn't do normally. So
you've got a couple of stock ponds.
We've got 4 on the main lake.
A couple. Right.
Yeah, 4 on the main lake. So we've got the two ponds that Danny Turtle built, the lined ponds, which are about 6 metres maybe wide by about 8 or 10 metres long. So quite sizable ponds, about a metre deep. They've got the cream of the crop in. So at the moment they've got 30 each in each lake, which were the ones that didn't make the grade the year before. So they weren't big enough to go in the main lake the year before. So they were 4 to 6 pound. And then the big stock pond by the lodge that used to be part of the main lake, there's a couple of 100 fish in there now, and that always had the runts of the litter in it. And what we used to basically do, stock the ones out of A and B pond, the 2 line ponds into the main lake. Those ponds are then clean, and then ones that didn't make the grade from C pond, the best of those, best 30 to go in each pond, best 60 in total, will be moved up to A and B, fed for a year. They're then doubles, move them on into the main lake. And
do they always make it into the main lake? Or?
Oh yeah. I mean, we put 20 in the road lake last year that sort of hadn't made the grade, that was sort of 8, 9, maybe 10 pound. But any of the ones that were sort of the right shape and sort of 8 to 15 pounds they are generally, they went into the main lake. So last year we put 150 new ones in the main lake.
You started stocking around, what was that, 2016, that sort of time?
Yeah. So
and they were C3 or 4?
C3s.
Yeah.
3 summers old at 2016. So they're 6 summers old this year, those fish. And we put 38 in the first year, and they were between 6 and 13 pound.
Were you surprised how big they were? For that
No,
age?
I was disappointed actually.
Right.
Because we'd fed them so intensively. The ponds had I still have an amazing pump system and aeration system. So we've got no filtration for them. We pump water out of the main lake, which goes through both of the top ponds into the 3rd big pond, and then back into the main lake. And we've also got aeration in both of the top ponds, the lined ponds. So big H-shaped aerators that create tiny little bubbles. My good friend Andrew Gibbons is a expert koi keeper. Give you an idea, his filtration room is like as big as the pond. It's like a garage at the back of his garden, and he can reduce the dissolved solids in his pond water, so it's purer than Evian.
Wow.
Yeah.
Blimey.
Yeah, he's got these huge drum filters and loads of other filters as well, and he's got a readout on the side of the wall that says how many dissolved solids per million parts or whatever.
Oh.
And if it costs him a fortune to do that. I mean, it's central heated as well, his pond. So, his fish never drop below 10 degrees, and he's got massive koi in there. I think he grew a koi from an egg to 30 pound in 3 years. Gives you an idea.
Blimey.
Yeah. So he basically did our pump system and our aeration system for the stock ponds. So it's highly oxygenated water. It's pure water because you don't need to filter it because you're taking it out the main lake, which is a 35-acre filter, basically. So it's getting water pumped in. The water changes in both those ponds twice every day. So there's no chance of ever having water quality issues. Certainly if you haven't got them in the main lake, then you're not going to have them in the ponds.
So you were disappointed with the 38 that you put in size-wise. What about seasons following that?
Well, the top 4 or 5 I wasn't disappointed with because they were 10-pounders, and a C3 in England is 4 to 6 pound from a fish farmer, from your Simon Scotts or Mark Simmons, whatever. 4 to 6 pound, they're happy with that. So the fact that most of them were 6 pound and some of them were 10 pound, I was expecting a lot, to be honest, but I wanted them all to be 10-pounders. I'm never happy in that respect. But they whacked it on, and that 13-pounder, a fish called Hector, swimming around in there now is probably about 47 pound.
Wow.
As a C6,
Wow.
So a big C6 in England's 24, 25 pound fish farmed C6. That's a big one. If they're 20-pounders, they're happy. So we've got a C6. It was last out of 44.12 or 45.12 about a month or so ago, and they're putting £1 a month on at the moment, at least. So could be by the end of the year, it might even be a 50-pounder C6. And the biggest common got caught while I was there last week at 41. That's a C6, 41 common. So
encouraging, isn't it?
More than encouraging, mate.
Yeah,
yeah.
very.
It's I wouldn't say it's the best bit of running the fishery, but it's equally as good as the big ones getting caught. Seeing the stockies that you have reared from an egg to be in that size,
because you're taking eggs from the lake into the stock.
Yeah, so what we basically did was Simon Scott and I went out there to basically try and catch a male and a female before spawning, strip the female of eggs, the male of milk, just like Simon does in his fish farming business, which is a risky business but doable, and play God basically and make some babies. When we got there, the day we got there, they started spawning. And Simon was kept up all night with fish going through his line spawning, because they were spawning on the bottom of the lake in 20 foot. It didn't look like spawning. It just looked like loads of liners, and it was all fizzing up, and because they're charging through the weed on the bottom of the lake, spawning on the bottom of the lake. So Simon's wound in the morning, having not had a wink of sleep, with carp eggs all up his line. Right, and I'd never seen a carp egg before in the flesh, And we've put out one of those pronged stainless steel marker leads that's, can't remember who it was, used to make them. Anyway, put one of those out, dragged a load of weed in, full of eggs. Absolutely. So Simon being Simon gets his microscope out. That one's 4 hours old, that one's 6 hours old, that one's 8 hours old. That means that one's mum and dad is different from that one's mum and dad. Biodiversity, brilliant. So we basically just hooked out loads of weed, didn't have to strip a male and a female, hooked loads of weed out and dropped it into these 2 lined ponds that we'd spiked with manure to get the freshwater plankton going, the Daphnia and all that sort of thing. Simon got very technical and got a glass bowl, dunked it in there, held it up to the sky, said, "Yep, there's enough food in there." That was his assessment.
So did it happen so it was a bit by accident then?
Well, it was by accident. It wasn't by accident because we were there to do that, but we didn't have to strip a male and a female, which meant we got loads of mums and dads. So we got a massive diversity of fish. Our mistake was we put far too many eggs in there, and Simon said, "Everyone puts too many eggs in, leave it to me, I'll do it." And Simon put far too many eggs in as well. So we ended up with 2 ponds full of them, which obviously thousands and thousands of them we poured away. And we ended up with some absolute brutes, which are the cannibals. When they're first born, they eat the others. They're born first, they get big, they eat the others, they get bigger and bigger, and they just fly. So we got them. The biggest one as a C1 was 1 pound and 6 ounces. which was a huge C1, but they went right down to that. So that first year we split them out into the different ponds. Hundreds went into the third pond, the biggest pond, and we're still taking them out of there from that spawning every year. And as soon as they go in the main lake, they just rock it. So they basically catch up to where they would have been if they'd had a really good life. So if they go in the main lake at £8 this year, within 12 months they'll be £35.
Amazing.
Because they catch up to where they should be. Just insane. Like, we've got so many that if you go on the site again and look on the fish, and go on the 30s, there's loads of one Gino caught recently. Go and click on the 30s, mate. Can't remember what. If you scroll down, I'll be able to tell you the fish. Keep going. Gino does a Gareth. Where is it?
Wow, look at that linear. What's that pearly linear? That's a distinctive fish, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a stocky, £38 at the moment. Probably a 40 now.
Scales on that, Dan.
Yeah, that was £10 when that went in at the start. See, on each one you've got the catch history. Johnny Sissons there, who works for us. That was when it was just caught, £10, and that was when it was stocked. November 2016, £10, 8 ounces.
See, they're going to be big. Look at the shoulders on that.
Yeah. So we can say with absolute certainty how old that fish is. So you wouldn't believe it if it wasn't that one, the Nomad. If you click on that, so that's £30, 8 ounces. That's the last one Gino caught on the Korda trip this year. If you click on the right hand thing, that's it, going in at £6, 12 ounces, just under 2 years before. Same fish, hasn't been caught in between that period. Click on it again, and you can see the other side of the fish. So they change shape.
They do,
and
don't they?
Completely.
Yeah.
If you go back one more, then that is that fish.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. That's what I say. They catch up to where they should be if they'd had the right life. And it actually seems to be the ones in sea pond which have had the hardest existence, so not fed as much, a lot more mouths to sort of compete with. They're the ones that grow the fastest in the main lake.
They've got that survival instinct.
Well, it's like, we've got an unlimited supply of natural food.
What's this?
Now let's go.
Yeah.
Let it just eat.
So how's the original fish, Dan? How's that affected the growth and health of the other fish in the lake?
Amazingly, and we didn't plan for this, the big ones are still growing, and I think that's largely due to the amount of bait that gets fed now. The fact that it's not fished with zigs for the whole spring like it used to be year after year, so they're getting fed right the way through the year now, and they're getting fed big quantities. In the summer months, July, August, September, even October, most anglers are putting a minimum of 5 key a night in. Some are putting 10 key, some are putting 15 key a night in.
Is it always getting eaten?
Well, none of it's popping up, mate. So yes,
right,
and that's how you're getting that growth. A fish called Scar. It's been £60 for quite a few years. Got caught at 67 this year. Old fish that have been at the same weight for quite a long time should not put that amount of weight on. And I'm sure it's food supply. Can't be anything else. So although we've doubled the number of fish in there, we've probably trebled the amount of food that's gone in. So the big ones are still growing. The Immaculate that got caught the other, last week.
Have you got a picture of that one?
I hope so.
I wish we had that Instagram picture that Damo's. Have you seen that, Dan?
No.
On Instagram, there's a picture of it in there.
Right. This will be one of this will be one of the pictures. That was last year's capture from the same swim, the beach or Bob's Beach, after good old Bob pulling. £80, 8 ounces, and got caught a year and a bit later from the same swim. And if you go on to the pictures that I've given you separately, there should be one. Well, it's actually one of the Dropbox pictures, mate, from the lake. There should be.
Yeah, we've got that one on there. Yeah.
No. It's the Dropbox.
The Dropbox on the left-hand side of the screen there, down at the bottom. You see that, Paul?
That's it. That was it. No, that's
it's with those pictures. Yeah.
It's with those pictures. That second one, the first or second picture. There you go.
Look at that.
Yeah. He's grimacing there, isn't he?
I'll tell you what, he looks all right, actually, considering how heavy that
Look at the
thing must
vein
be.
in his head, though.
Yeah, that
the
vein
vein
looks
is
like it
about to
might
pop out of
explode.
Steve's head there, isn't it?
And he caught that out the beach, Dan.
At the beach, 25 wraps on a solid bag.
Solid bag.
Solid bag,
There
just
we
like
go, yeah.
Rob's beautiful solid bag we can see on the desk there. Very, very similar setup. Short hook link, 4.5-inch hook link. Just go back at there's another picture. There should be a picture of the other side of it in that bit as well. That one. Yeah. No, these are ones. These are taken
pictures.
Rich. These are not my shots actually. I haven't seen these ones. These are the ones taken by Rich Holden, who was basically next to me and behind me, using the 100mm macro lens. So macro is for close-up shots, but we've learnt from one of our photographers, 100mm macro lens, f2.8, so blur in the background quite significantly, but obviously the foreground's all nicely in focus. Yeah, nice shots they are. Not seen them in the flesh yet. So
that fish, Damon's been putting up. That's on Instagram today. There's a picture of the tree line. A 50-pounder comes out. They reckon a 50-pounder, and then you see another one behind it, which is a little bit bigger, and then that thing comes out.
Right.
And it takes that. You need to see that.
Who's taken that picture?
I don't know,
then?
It's been on Instagram. You check Damo's Instagram.
Right. Okay.
It's huge.
Yeah.
But
is that a recent picture since its capture? Or
No, I think summer.
Right.
Summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, to see a fish that size in the water is awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to see it in the water because he got away from him.
It got away, yeah.
It got away from him and it was gone, so we didn't see it sort of drift off. It was just like
gone.
Away, yeah.
For a big fish, it can still move a little bit.
Oh yeah, it moved.
But you said that one, has that surprised you? How much weight that's put
Yes, that could have been 77. It could have been 87.
Right.
You just never know, you know. And obviously, it's gone a whole year without being on the bank. So maybe it's been hooked and lost, maybe not.
Oh, well
is
done,
this
mate.
it?
Yes, this is. Look at this. Well, that's a
Right. Okay. So this has got to be. This is last year then, because this is when the snags were still in the. Unless this is between Beach and Baxter's areas. Oh my God. If you're listening to this on a podcast and you're not watching it on YouTube, watch it on YouTube.
Well, you want to watch
it
on
on
YouTube.
YouTube. That's an £80 common.
You don't see too many of them.
I reckon that's between Beach and Baxter's. There's the one bit of tree line left in the water because we've taken all the other trees out of the water because the fish just live in them, especially the big cute ones like them. Take the tree line out, fish gets caught.
Right, yeah.
You know, you do not want loads of overhanging trees in any carp lake.
Any lake. Yep.
You don't want that. As Simon Scott says, trees are the enemy of any carp lake. Stops the wind getting on it, fish live in them, makes them uncatchable.
Yeah, we can watch them during the day. You know that they're always going to be in snags during the day.
I don't want to watch them in the snags. I want to catch them.
Exactly.
I want them in the bottom of the landing net.
And then people feed them as well, don't they? And it's no good, really, is it?
It's about people feed them in the snags. Yeah, that's madness.
Crazy.
Keep them in there.
Do you want to talk a little bit about fishing Gigantica, Dan?
Yep.
You know, is it
what tactics-wise?
Yeah,
you mean?
tactics-wise. So how would you? I mean, you know, roughly how would you approach the session on there?
It depends on the time of year,
right?
Dramatically. So the range that you fish at and how much bait you put in is governed by the time of year. So looking at now, having just been there, I've baited heavily with pellets to get the swim going. That generally brings in the stockies because they're reared on pellets, but they're 30-pounders now, a lot of them. So I don't consider that a nuisance, a 30-pound fish. That's still big carp to me. I use pure pellet to start off with, hardly any boilie, nothing else. Get the spot rocking and then introduce more and more boilie into my mix and more maize and everything else as the session goes on. Some people just go straight in with a maize and boilie mix and do well. Some people fish just boilies, you know, and do okay. Boilies on their own at this time of the year tends to not be as productive because the fish have just seen so much of it. Don't think it's that they've got anything against them, but they just had them so much. I think their want for them is waning at this time of the year. And by feeding something different like maize, like hemp, which we cook at the lake for people, sell at a reasonable price. Then we know the particle's prepared properly. That's why we don't want people bringing their own particle with them, because big fish gorging themselves on a badly prepared particle can be the death of the fish.
Have you got a nut ban on there?
Yes.
Right, so no nuts allowed on
there.
there?
No nuts allowed at all, because basically it got more and more nuts got used, and I was part of that. I was doing it myself, hemp and tiger. Then Tom Dove's fishing pure tigers. Then everyone's fishing pure tigers. And then you can't get a bite on anything but tigers. And the weights of the fish are suffering, and it's just not good for the lake, And like tigers are a brilliant bait, and if they're used in isolation or every now and again, no problem. But as soon as they start to rule somewhere, it's a downward spiral, and it's about the lake being healthy and the fish being healthy, not just about getting people to bite.
Are they showing a preference for the pellets because that's what they've been fed?
Yes, I think so. I think so. It did appear to be a small fish tactic. I started it a couple of weeks ago on Coes Point. Came out 1 in the draw. First time I've ever done it. I chose not to choose, so I didn't pick a ball out of the bag. And I just said, I'm going to have the last ball that's left. And the last ball was number 1.
Wow.
Went on Coes Point. Hadn't done a massive amount of fish previously. I only caught a couple in the first couple of days, and then went over to pure pellet just to see if it would spark up. While I was doing it, I was thinking, this ain't going to work. I'm going to be on maize by tomorrow. And had 2 bites within an hour of finishing spomming. Put 6 key of pellet out, which is 60 medium spoms, because I counted it. Within an hour I'd had a 28 pounder, and then I had a 21 straight after that as well, and then carried on feeding the pellet and just basically reintroduced more and more boilie. All I caught that session was stockies.
Interesting week that, and most of the lake fished the same way, didn't it?
I think there were 5 originals out. Bearing in mind there's almost the same number of originals as there are stockies, but the stockies are smaller, hungry, more willing to feed, so they're going to get caught more. But the originals this year, I think, we're almost on the same number of originals caught this year as last year, but massively up on the number of stockies. So they're not stopping the originals getting caught, but they're outnumbering them now, whereas it used to be 50% of the anglers on the lake had blank. Now it's probably 20% blank instead. And it definitely seems to reward good angling and effort more than it has done in years gone past. Years gone past, if you were in the right swim at the right time of year, put in a reasonable amount of the right bait, you would get bites. And if you were in the wrong swim, then you didn't. But now there doesn't seem to be a wrong swim anymore.
It was quite peggy. I remember fishing there. It was quite... we were allowed to use boats then as well. So when did you decide to take the boats away from...
Don't know how long ago it was, but it was just getting overbaited. People had put 30, 40 key in for the week, not get a bite, and then Friday night put 10 key in, shit or bust, and it was bust every single time. And then the poor bloke going in there the week after has got to fish over 50 key of bait, stopping that basically meant it rewarded people that were prepared to spom or throwing stick and put more effort in. It stopped everyone fishing quite as far out, because providing you could cast your rigs there, then you could fish that far out, whereas obviously being able to spom at range cuts people back a bit, So it made it feel like a bigger lake, and the run rate went up straight away by doing it, because there wasn't so much free food out there all the time. And that was happening a lot. But, the fish were gorging themselves on the bait from the guy the week before, because he'd fish at 28 wraps in such and such a direction. The bloke going into the swim next week could only fish at 25. He fished in a different direction, so they just ate the bait at 28 for that week. And it just made it hard because there's so much free bait. So the weights were massive. When the fish did get caught, they were huge, but the run rate was going down. So that's why we changed it over to no boats, and it's been better ever since.
Yeah, when we were fishing there, I think I was putting about 5k out a night with the boat actually. And they weren't bothered by the boats though, were they?
I think they were bothered when everybody's out in the boat a lot.
Yeah,
if you went out and did it...
I've done it on my own, yeah.
Yeah, if you're careful, then no. Turtle used to think they used to eat it straight off the back of the boat. So as you threw it in, they'd eat it on the drop, which made sense. It's free bait, isn't it? It's safe. If it's in mid-air, it's safe.
Yeah.
And he reckons he'd seen them taking boilies. I hadn't seen it myself, so I can't say, but it makes sense. Does make sense.
I was surprised actually when we were there, the amount of people that weren't using the boat. I think it was only our group that were using the boat then, actually.
Yeah, well, you had to pay for it, didn't you? It was like €25 or €35 for the week. It wasn't a lot of money,
right,
compared to what other people charge for using a boat. Yeah, some people, they don't want to spend the money.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we'll ever go back to it, to be honest, because it just encourages people to fish badly, to overbait, to fish further out than they should,
There is a limit to how much they're going to eat. I mean, there is a danger of having mouldy bait on the lake bed, isn't there? If you keep baiting like that, they can't.
Yes, the fish farming sort of ratio is 1% of body weight per day. Your entire biomass. I don't know what that works out. 650 fish averaging 35 pound. Don't know what that works out, but at 1% of that every day, that's what it would have if it was a fish farm. That's not taking roach into account. It's not taking the crayfish into account. So it can take a lot of bait every day. But it's certainly that no bait pops up. So it's all getting eaten.
It's getting eaten. Is it a long range lake still nowadays, or you can catch them different ways?
I'm changing my opinion on it the whole time. I've always tried to discourage people from fishing at extreme range because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If everyone fishes at range, all the fish get caught at range, so everyone fishes at range, and so on and so on and so on. Now, because there's a lot more fishing now, a lot of the swims are, certainly Baxter's Beach, they're 21, 22 wraps. So 80, 88 yards-ish. The big girls is in a corner, that's 21 wraps. So is Stock Pond. Scotty's is 16 wraps. And a lot of the central swims are 24 to 28 wraps. So, 28's only 112 yards. It's not miles by any stretch, is it, Having said that, a lot of people do struggle to get that range, and I've had to come, when I went on Coes recently, it was so windy in my face, I came back to 27 because it was easier. I was fishing 15-pound line straight through, 15-pound touchdown, didn't want to use tapered line, didn't want to use my 13-foot rods, fished at 27 and caught plenty.
Right.
So I'd say the average, if you're looking at, really you need to be able to fish effectively at 100 yards on the main lake, so if you get in one of those central swims, you can make the most of it. But there are swims where you are only fishing at 80 yards. You know.
You said the weed's grown back now, so it's fairly clean bottom now?
Yeah, no, we drag it every February. We shut for 2 weeks and we drag the weed, and we're getting less and less and less every year. And it's a popular misconception with fishery management is, there's no point cutting the weed or dragging the weed. It just grows back twice as fast. Well, it doesn't grow back twice as fast. That's absolute rubbish, People who say that say it because they don't want to do the job in the first place. Yes, it does grow back, and yes, in the summer it grows faster than the winter. But if you keep knocking it back, pulling it out by the root, which is what we do with the rakes that we use, because the weed we've got doesn't float, so we can't use the weed boat to cut it because that relies on the weed floating to the surface. But just by raking it, you're pulling it out by the root every year, and it does knock it back. And if you combine that with so many more mouths to feed, all these small carp that are going in are feeding on the bottom, which is smashing the weed to bits. They're feeding in the weed on the zebras and the tiny little microscopic crayfish that are in the weed, and it's smashing the weed to bits. And they eat the weed as well, So when you put all that together, and they murk the water up a bit more because there's more fish in there, more fish activity, murkier water, less light penetration. You put all those things together, it's had a dramatic effect on how much weed there is in the lake. And now there's just little wispy bits here and there.
What are you looking for feature-wise then? I mean,
there ain't no features, mate.
So are you sticking a marker float out or anything but when you get there, or just...
Not for anything other than a marker for your spom rod, really. It's the range that you want to fish at. Some people look for harder spots, some people look for softer. I haven't found it makes a jot's worth of difference personally. Basically, I've sort of assessed it with a couple of sessions I've done recently. The priorities are bait, rig, range. Yeah, so you have to put the right amount of the right bait in, and that might be only maize, it might be maize pellet boilie, it might be only boilie, depends on the time of year. But generally, the right amount of the right bait at the right time of day, that's really, really important. So many people, the fish get active late in the afternoon into the evening, say. Not all through the year, but recently they have been. And people are still baiting up at 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night when the fish are active. You should have done your baiting at midday, 11 o'clock in the morning. Nothing's happened then. No fish activity. It's all over from the night before. Get it done early. Get it out of the way. And then 3 rods out after dinner. Dink, 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 you're fishing. You know, people come back from dinner, marker float goes out, start spomming for 2 hours. The fish are already showing before they start doing it. And then they just delay the opportunity to get their first bite by so much more. So putting the right amount of bait out at the right time of day, absolutely key. And the people that don't notice the fish activity, not necessarily bites, but when fish start showing, you want to have your bait in the water for several hours before that starts to happen. And if you're walking around with blinkers on and not seeing that happening...
That's always coinciding with bites when you're seeing those fish show then.
Well, it's this precursor to bites starting to happen. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And, you bait up middle of the day, they start showing. I've had bites 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon there, having put bait in at midday in the right swims. Other swims you have to wait until it gets dark, but you might get a bite just into dark, whereas if you've only just finished spomming, you might not get a bite till 2 in the morning. You might not get a bite at all. And if you do that every single day for 7 days, bait up at just the wrong time, you can do a week blank and you were in the right swim, you just baited up at the wrong time of day.
Just getting it
day
wrong,
after day after day, and have not realised, oh, blimey, mate, he's had a bite down there at 6 o'clock and I'm still putting bait in at 6 o'clock. That's wrong. I need to do it earlier. And people don't see that. They don't look what's going on around the lake, when the fish are showing, when they're getting caught, and then adjust their approach accordingly. So bait is the most important thing. Rigs, definitely, they're the riggiest fish. They're like gone to Mensa or something. I'm sure when we put these little ones in the lake, one of the big ones, like Chunky's, just sitting there going, right, lads, this is how it's going to be. This is what we do. You know, because the big ones don't get caught. They might only get caught once in a year. Might not get caught for 2 or 3 years. And yet they're growing. So they must be eating, you know, and they are tricky carp. Long range, generally, really deep water, you know, and a lot of bait in the swim. You know, that's a special set of circumstances, that, you know. A lot of bait in the swim means the fish aren't having to move very far. It's all coming out the spom, landing in clumps. Fish aren't having to move very far. You know, I can imagine 30 or 40 of them turning up on the spot and barely moving and just hoovering and just sort of gradually moving along the bottom. Your rig goes in their mouth. It doesn't tighten the hook link, out again. Carry on going.
Carry on.
One behind it does the same thing, out again. And that might happen over and over again, you know. And when you get an indication, sometimes people get you know, did it in the middle of the night up to the top.
That's it.
You've been done.
Done.
But I reckon that happens loads where the bobbin doesn't move because they haven't moved the lead at all. It's just been in and out of their mouth and you're none the wiser. So now when I'm fishing further out, I fish absolutely bowstring tight lines. And I can't stand fishing tight lines. I'd much rather a slack line. I want it all on the bottom so the fish don't know I'm there. But I think now they're going to come in, whether your line's tight or not, they know they can do you. So they're just going to come in and eat it all anyway, you know. So bowstring tight line. I let it settle a little bit before I tighten it right up, and I only use light bobbins. So there's no giving the bobbin at all. There's no lift or anything. It's just tight. I think you could fish without bobbins, to be honest. And the clutches are done up pretty tight as well. And I'm fishing running lead clips. So the fish can't use the weight of the lead to shake the hook out, which we know happens because hybrid lead clips, people wind in the morning, no lead on. Not had a bleep. Fish has shaken the lead off the rig and got away in the dark. You've not had a bleep. You just wind a rig with no lead. You know, helicopter rigs, people doing the same thing with heli-safe windings, no lead on.
We've all had it done. Yeah,
mate, it's mental. It's mental.
One thing, because you said you're using running leads now.
Yes.
Why is that?
Just because the fish, you've seen it with the underwater filming, the fish haven't got an anchor point in order to use to throw the hook. And they're not thinking, oh, I'm using this anchor point to throw this hook. They don't know it's a hook. It's something sharp in their mouth, unpleasant, they want to get rid of, and they're shaking their head violently, and the lead is helping them by dragging the hook out of their mouth rather than into their mouth. With a running rig, you see it, if you look back on the underwater films on YouTube, they shake their head and the lead just slides away from them. So no matter what they do, they can't make the line go slack.
It's important to use a nice tight line with that as well, isn't it?
Well, not necessarily, no. I've done it with a slack line, and it's still... When the fish weren't as cute as they are, with a slack line, especially something like fluorocarbon that's so heavy, there's still resistance there. So it hasn't pulled the hook in, but it's holding the hook in place. And as the fish is doing that, trying to get away, the hook just stays there. And I think if they can't get rid of it in a couple of seconds, then they panic and run.
That's when they bark.
You know, they don't then go sit back down on the bottom and go, right, think about this, Chunky, think about it. What are we going to do now? They don't do that, do they?
But would you favour a tight line though, with a running lead normally?
No, I would rather have a slack line just because I don't want the fish to know that I'm there. But from a fucking them up point of view, I think a tight line and a running lead is better.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I've been using it recently. When I've done the bailiff in there, and when I've been there, just sort of at the end of somebody else's week before my week starts, and you look at the people that have caught, often they've got tight lines, you know. And I just thought, well, it's not doing you any harm. You've had 6 fish this week. I've been fishing slack the last 2 years and caught nothing. You know, if you can't beat them, join them. You know, and you know, you never stop learning. And Andy Savage that runs the site for us, he's of the same opinion that they are going to come in and clean you out and eat all your bait, whether you've got a tight line or a slack line. And if a tight line makes it harder for them to get away with it, then fish a tight line. You know, that might change. And Steve who caught that Immaculate Common at 87 was fishing with fluorocarbon and really slack lines.
Was he?
So, you know, both work. But, you know, I know I've done 3 sessions on there this year and had best part of 60 bites, and they've all been on tight lines. And that 60 bites is like, I haven't had 10 bites in the last 3 years prior to that. Right. You know, so the new fish and my change of tactics has made a big difference.
So stick with that for now then.
Until it stops working, yeah.
So you had a good session last week, Dan, didn't you?
Yeah, really good. It's sort of overshadowed because an 87 and a half got caught and a 79 and a 12. I only caught 2 60s, do you know what I mean? So it's like, who cares? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, I went into a swim called the Stink. I came out 7th in the draw out of 10. So not the greatest result from the draw point of view. Got my 5th choice of swim, which was the Stink. Wind was going to howl into there all week, southwesterly. And I had 13 bites out the Stink, landing 10 of them. And the ones I lost were my fault. Rig malfunctions and getting cut off. But I'd split peck at 68.12, which is one I really wanted. I hope so. I hope so. That is probably the worst picture of it. Is there one where I'm actually holding it properly? You can see how big it is there.
We actually chose that one.
But did you?
Yeah.
No, that's baby cluster. That's only £60 for.
We thought it looked better.
Really? Well, can I have a look at that again? If that floats your boat, I like them to be.
That's a great picture. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid.
No one ever holds them where they're bolt upright, flat to the camera. They're always rolling backwards like that. So in the other pictures, I got it nice and straight, and you can see the immense depth of it. It's the same batch of fish as the giant. You know, as all the big uns, as fudgies. They're the same. They are the same batch of fish. I'd love to know where they came from. I'm sure the old owner bought them in one group, and they are off the scale good. You know, they are just. Look at the mouth on it. You know, like £68. It looks like it's never been caught.
On it as well, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and that,
well, like you say, these ones are getting a bit rarer. They're not getting caught so often.
Well, they never do, and if they're getting caught a couple of times a year. Their mouths are so big and so hard now, it's very difficult to do any real damage to them. Most damage happens when the fish are small, you know, and they've got well past that point now. And, you know, even fudgies, you know, that gets caught 2 or 3 times a year and has done every year, going back quite a few years, and that mouth still looks absolutely perfect. And that's we employ a barbless rule at Gigantica because, you know, it's the easiest way for the fish to get rid of the hook if the line snaps, so they're not tethered up. And you look at the state of their mouth; they're perfect.
I remember catching him there and seeing him in the net and seeing the hook in their mouths and seeing them working it out in the net.
Yeah,
it's amazing, isn't it? Doesn't take long.
No.
But yeah, like you say, the state of their mouths, the condition of them is better.
Yeah, they're unbelievable fish. It's not. There's the other one, that baby cluster, that other picture that you clicked on there.
That's a better.
Yeah, that's an awesome carp. Look at that.
It's a better colour picture, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, awesome creature.
Yeah,
awesome creature.
they and
the
the slungmouth.
Set to. Well, I'm sure that will just keep growing. It's a big long fish. I'm sure that will just keep growing, and that'll be a 70-pounder one day. I'm sure, but. It's amazing how all of these ones have continued to grow in spite of having 350 new mates to deal with, that are all young and want to eat. But it's just,
like you say,
the bait has surpassed the number of fish, and they've carried on growing.
Yeah, no, it upsets the order a little bit. That does
totally upsets the order, and I'd say that to anyone that's running a fishery in the UK or in Europe. Even if you put 10 5-pounders in your lake each winter, you'll upset the hierarchy because those fish don't know the drill. They'll go in and feed on spots where the big uns are used to getting their own way. The big uns will have to feed harder in order to compete, and the big uns will get caught. That the 38 fish we put in there in 2016, I think 21 of them haven't been caught yet out of those 38. They've been in there 3 years. They've been fed on pellet all their life. They were 6-pounders when they went in. They still haven't been caught.
I remember you got a video of that, haven't you? And you're thinking, well, they're going to get caught the day they're going to get put in there.
Yeah.
And nothing happens.
Nothing happens. They go on to natural. Maybe they're too small at the start to get caught on conventional rigs. So they get a year of eating bits, hemp, maize. No one puts 3 grains of maize or 2 grains of maize just on the hair and casts it out. Everyone's got a bit of plastic on. Or a bit of plastic and a bit of maize, or more often than not, just a boilie. But no one fishes pure maize, and if I was there a lot like the bailiffs, I would do that. I would go, I'm only going to feed maize, and I'm only going to fish maize on the hair, and see what happens. Yeah, I'm back out in November, actually. I might even do that in November, because that is how you will catch the rare ones. There's a common in there called the nude patch. I don't know if you can pull that up, Paul, because we can see when if you go onto the site, onto the 50s, there's a common called the nude patch common, and that hasn't been out in 7 years, I believe. There we go. I think that was 2012, last caught on a zig. A turtle with it.
There he is, look, yeah.
2011, 56.12. Yeah, so 2012, look, 53.8. That hasn't been caught since 2012.
Wow.
Right? So 7 years, that's not been caught for. How big is that now?
Be very big, couldn't it?
Could be a 70-pounder.
Yeah.
But it might also be a 54-pounder.
Are you seeing fish in the margins there that you can't always identify?
Not really. You don't really see them enough, mate, to know. I mean, one day we would like to make an underwater film there, and that would be
you said that before.
The underwater film to end all underwater films, because I know them all. That's the thing. I know, when they come in to swim, I'm like, oh my God, it's that one. And I'm sure, if you click back on the fish again and go onto the 40s, I think there's a fish called Mr. Tong, named after Ting Tong. Ian McMillan, good old Ting Tong. Yep. He caught that fish there he is, 44 pounds. So go back through the history of that fish. 39 pound. So 22nd of July 2017, and the previous capture is Mr. Tong, November 08. So it went from November 08 to September or whatever it was, July 17. So 9 years, and it put £9 on. Now that spawned out there, and look, there it is the following year at 44, looking absolutely off the scale. Now, if that fish hadn't been caught in 2017, you would have said that was dead, wouldn't you? Not there for 9 years.
Any English lake you would as well.
Yeah, you would say that fish was dead. But because we keep such accurate records, you know they're still there. We don't take them off the site until we see a body. The same like when they sadly pass away, they're removed off the wall in the clubhouse. They're removed off the site, so no one's booking a holiday trying to catch a carp that's no longer there.
Right.
And you see that a lot when you go to lakes in France. Is that one's that one, that one's that one, and that one's that one. They're repeated over and over, and then you go, God, I'd love to have that one, and then someone goes, dead, mate. You're like, what? Dead, mate. Yeah, just don't say anything, but it's dead. And you get that a lot. I just couldn't take a penny off someone trying to catch a fish that ain't there anymore. And that transparency side of it is really important to me. And it is a difficult lake. It's hard to get bites there. There's a very fine line between catching and not. And you could easily say that to some people. For some people, could say it's too difficult. But at least it's true. That is the real situation. you know.
No, I like it. It's like an English water. It's technical. It can be quite technical fishing on there, can't it?
100%.
That's,
you know, like I said, that we talked about earlier about is it a range water? Bait first, rig second, range third. So it'd be better to fish really effectively at 15 wraps with the right type of bait and the right rig and approach at 15 wraps than go out to 25 wraps and have the wrong bait on for the time of year, the wrong rig on, not fish effectively, not hit the clip every time, all that sort of thing. You know, that is the order: bait, rig, range.
Right.
You know, and what the swim I fished last week, the Stink, there were fish showing in that swim at 15 wraps and less. And because I was getting bites out at 27, I didn't pull a rod in short and fish a rod short. And a great tactic is find an area short. If you're going to fish long, find an area short off to the left or right. Bait it and fish it maybe on nights 3, 5 and 7 with just one rod. Don't fish it every night, every day, but bait it every single day, but fish it 3, 5 and 7, and then you can catch fish that you have trained into feeding off that spot and don't know, you know.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, every time I leave the lake I make notes of what I've done right and what I've done wrong, and that's what I did wrong in that swim. I should have fished, because I got a bite at 15 wraps on the first night. I baited at 28 and fished all 3 rods at 15 over next to no bait in the hope of nicking one or 2 fish early and letting my bait come to life out at long range, because the swim had hardly done any bites. So rather than having lines straight into my baited area, I thought, give it 24 hours, let them gain confidence. And I got a bite at 15. Unfortunately, I got cut off, you know, but it shows that you can nick a bonus bite while you're waiting for your bait at range to spark up. And who does that? You know, who does that? Baits and not fishes on a week's holiday in France.
It's difficult not to, isn't it?
It's difficult. Even when I was doing it, I'm putting the rods out at 15 thinking, what are you doing, you div? You've just put 10 key a pellet out at 28 wraps. You're not even going to fish it. You're insane, you know. But it did work in the long term. It did work for me. So
do you get quick bites as well when you put those rods onto that baited area?
Normally? Well, I had 3 bites the next night.
Yeah, so
you know, so at 27 actually, I couldn't get out to 28 because the wind got up, and I just wasn't getting accurate enough, and I wasn't hitting the clip hard enough. So I just pulled back to 27, and I cast my rigs because it was really windy. I cast my rigs out first at 28, and I thought this is too much effort. 15-pound line straight through, 18mm bottom bait. Just too much effort. I'm not getting it right. Just pull it back a rod length, just make it that bit easier for myself. Markered just with a marker lead at 27 to make sure it's still clear. Got the rigs out at 27, then baited, because I could have put all my bait out at 28 again and then struggled to get out there with the rigs and then been fishing crap on the second night. But because I knew that's happened to me before, put the fishing rods out first, make sure you can do it all right, then bait up, and then you're all fishing sweet, you know.
I remember Damo fishing in Coes as well, and I think he was fishing at range, and he was gradually baiting closer and closer and just making the fishing,
making it easier.
I
did that in March. Went out there in March, fished on Coes, had 21 takes in March, all stockies. I think I landed 16 of them. But you know, with stockies and stiff rods and all that, you do bump a few off, you know, and straight pointed barbless hooks. I was using long shank X's. You know, you do pull out of a few fish like that, especially fish with soft mouth. So I wasn't too worried about losing 5. But to get 21 bites out of there in March off the bottom was really good. I was really, really pleased with that. I was unlucky to not catch any of the originals, I think. And that was fishing corn. That was the other thing about tactics. In the winter time, you want to have mainly hemp, maize, corn, something like that, next to no boilie, just a sprinkling. And in the summer, you can get away with loads of boilie. I always put maize out because the big uns love it. Every big un you catch, if you retain it in the sling for any amount of time, there's maize in the sling. Every big un, you know, so they're eating it the whole time. I can see in your eyes you want to go and just use maize, don't you?
Yeah, well, I said to you, sweet corn this year has been a great bait, and I think you were saying before about using a little bit of maize on the hook actually as a hook bait
over the top of corn.
Using it over the top.
I've done that a lot, fishing maize over the top of corn just so it stays on that a bit better.
Yeah,
just a couple of grains hard on the bottom, no buoyancy to it. You know, Combi Rig. Yeah, really, really effective tactic.
It is. It gets overlooked a little bit.
It gets overlooked completely, which is a great thing. And even if you tell people that, so many people go to France, they've got a preconceived idea. I'm doing this and that is all I am doing. And if that doesn't work, they've had it. You know, they hit the wall very, very hard on Tuesday or Wednesday because they were going to slay it, and they haven't. You know, and those people find it very, very difficult to adjust their approach and adapt during the session. You know, and I've been in that position before myself. I've gone with a preconceived idea, picked a swim, not based on what's happening at the moment, based on last year, and did so well in it, and it cost me dearly. And I hit the wall at about 100 miles an hour on the Wednesday, I think it was. So, and that hurt. Do you know what I mean?
Does that mean taking 3 times as much sometimes as what you would normally have to take?
No, I don't. No, because we sell the particle there. You don't need to, but you just need to be open-minded enough to change your approach if 2 or 3 days in it's not working. You know, and most people aren't open-minded. Most people I'm fishing it this way
until they get to the last night.
And that's it. Well, no, until they get to the way home, and then I've done it loads of times, driving back thinking, you div, you know, knowing exactly what I've done wrong. And one big mistake I've made is fishing the periphery swims, not the central commanding swims, the periphery swims like they're the central swims, and putting too much bait in. And by day 4, you've put 28 or 30 key in, you can't take it out, and then they turn up on you, and there's too much bait out there to get a bite, and you still don't get a bite, and then you go a day in and you still haven't had a bite, and then you put more out, you know, left it for a day without putting any out, and you're getting closer to getting a bite, and then you ruin it again by putting more out. You know, and you should have just sat there and waited. And this session just gone. The last night I put more bait out, and I shouldn't have done. In hindsight, I should have just left it because they were showing everywhere on the last night, and there was only one take on the whole lake, and which is poor at this time of the year. I mean, one of the nights there was 10 fish out to all the anglers, and you know, I just got it wrong. You know, on that last night, if I hadn't put bait in, I probably would have caught 1 or 2 on the last night, but.
I remember moving in after Ali actually on Coast Point.
Really?
And, yeah.
Right.
And he caught the last morning, but he put a load of bait out. He put like a 20...
He put 20 key out in the middle of the week.
That was
it.
And
didn't catch anything for 2 nights.
Were you there that week?
Yeah. I was on Alcatraz.
Actually, I think you might have caught fudges that week, actually. Yeah. Well, we were down the week after that. And
2011, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And, yeah... And the swim died, didn't it, for like 3 or 4 days for him, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it was literally the last morning when he got in there.
Yeah.
So they you know, it's just too much bait.
It was too much bait. He went giddy with the boat.
Yeah.
He had it, so he used it.
Do you think they weren't? Because during that session, I was thinking, well, you know, is it just too much concentration of food in that area, and they're just avoiding it? Or, you know, are they picking away at it over the first few days?
I think they were probably picking away at the edges. They were either picking away at the edges or avoiding it completely. Like, whoa, I'm not happy with that.
It's just too much.
I'm not happy with it. I'm not happy with it. I'm going to eat it. Right, I'm going to eat it as well. And so am I, and so am I. And suddenly there's 20 or 30 of them all going for it because it's been out there long enough now that they've decided they're going to eat it. And then they just eat the whole lot.
High concentration of smell and, you know, and everything that's in that. 20 kilos is a lot of bait
I think it's the sight of it more than anything else. I think they swim over it and they're like, we know what's going on here. This is obvious. This is too much, and we want to eat it. It excites us and everything else, and we're going to swim round it and round it and round it. But I ain't going to be the first to go in and have it, you know. And then somebody does, and somebody else does, and then they all are.
Well, that's what happened because I know he caught a load of.
He caught Robert's fish, didn't he? 56 pound on the last morning. Yeah,
maybe like 4 or something on the last morning.
Yeah.
So they did get on it, but
they did get on it. Yeah, you should have done it on the first day, not the 4th day.
Yeah.
But again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? You know, it's what keeps you going.
And that always stayed in there actually.
What keeps you going back to the lake.
Yeah.
Is not cracking it.
That's it.
You know, that's what makes us go back to fishing. If every time we went, we smashed it, we'd get bored.
It would get very boring.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like it when you're not catching. It sounds like there's no way I'm ever going to get bored, but you would, and that's why putting the extra fish in and the big ones all still growing. It's constantly evolving, and for me now, it's not am I going to catch one? It's how many am I going to catch, and am I going to get one of the big ones? You know, it really has turned it around now, and it rewards effort and good angling and stuff now. It's not just the luck of the draw, you know.
Well, it's always been an exciting venue, and I think with those big uns popping up now, touching, £90 again, that's going to attract even more attention.
It's just attracting the Damien Clarks of this world, isn't he? He wants to go. He wants to go again now.
Yeah.
Him and Adam Penning used to call it pastica when I first got it.
Yeah.
Which used to grind on me like you wouldn't believe, because I paid an absolute fortune for it and was putting my life and soul into it. And all of a sudden now he wants to go again.
Yeah,
now it's got an £87 common in it.
We've had a few rumblings, haven't we?
Yeah, no, he's already booked. He's booked to go on the.
He's got the dates and everything sorted out when it's going to get caught.
Yeah, when it's going to get caught. I think that's 2021. But next year he's booked on the Sport Dress week, which is the guys from the tackle shop that's run by Pedder in Denmark. They're fantastic anglers. Always do really, really well. Damien's managed to slide his way into that.
He was
week.
like an excited little kid this morning when he knew that. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him though, Dan. You never know, do you?
Well, it's called good angling, I think.
Yeah,
it's called good angling, getting on that week, and if you had to put money on somebody catching it, I think he'd be the one to put the money on.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, mate.
It's quite late now, actually, isn't it?
It is.
This is a late podcast.
It's a very late podcast, but it was worth it.
It was nice listening to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, Danny, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Do this again.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks.
See you.
The Thinking Tackle Podcast.